What if I told you some PS2 RPGs are still better than half the stuff dropping in 2025? We're talking about massive worlds, wild stories, and mechanics so ahead of their time, you'll wonder if devs had a crystal ball. This isn't nostalgia goggles, it's proof the PlayStation 2 era was stacked. So grab your memory card because we're counting down 10 PS2 RPGs that remain absolute legends today. What happens when you throw Disney magic, Final Fantasy cameos, and one spiky-haired kid with a giant key into a blender? You get Kingdom Hearts 2, and somehow, it actually works. This is the moment the series really clicked. Bigger, faster, and flashier than the first game, Kingdom Hearts 2 refined almost every rough edge and turned the crossover experiment into one of the PS2's defining RPGs. The first thing you'll notice is the combat. Where the original sometimes felt stiff, Kingdom Hearts 2 is pure flow. Every swing of the Keyblade connects smoother. Combos link together in a rhythm that just feels right. And then Square decided to add drive forms. 1 second you're swinging slow and steady, the next you've morphed into Valor form, slicing through enemies at lightning speed, or you go Wisdom, sliding around like a mage with a machine gun of magic blasts. These forms aren't just style. They unlock movement skills like high jump and glide that stay with you, completely changing exploration. Then there are reaction commands. The big green triangle button pops up mid-battle, and suddenly you're countering bosses with cinematic finishers. Okay, it's a bit press triangle to win, but I know you secretly enjoy that as much as I do. Throw in summons, limit attacks with partners, and the ability to reflect anything back at enemies, and you've got a combat system that's aged shockingly well. Even today, people do level 1 critical runs against bosses like the infamous Lingering Will, and that's how deep the mechanics go once you stop mashing. Okay, the Roxas intro drags on way too long with delivery jobs and minigames before Sora even shows up. Atlantica decided to be a Disney sing-along instead of a dungeon, which, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. And if you play on standard difficulty, you'll probably cruise through without breaking a sweat. But the highs? They crush those lows. Timeless River is a brilliant throwback in black and white. Space Paranoids throws you into Tron, complete with light cycle set pieces and that inside-the-computer vibe that switches up pacing. The World That Never Was delivers one of the best final stretches of any RPG on the system, and all of it is carried by a soundtrack from Yoko Shimomura that still gives goosebumps. The best part? The final mix version with extra bosses, tougher modes, and more story links is included in the HD 1.5 plus 2.5 remix collection, and it runs silky smooth at 60 frames per second.
Give up! Run! Running executable! Data transfer! Give up!
Learning to code the old way usually feels like punishment. Endless tutorials, boring lectures, and the occasional existential crisis about whether the brain is actually working. Boot.dev decided to fix that. Instead of snoozing through slides, students jump straight into building real projects, like Python, SQL, Go, and even TypeScript. The idea is simple. Learn by actually doing the stuff developers do on the job. And it's not just coding in a vacuum. There's XP to earn, levels to grind, quests to complete, and even bosses to fight. Yes, it's basically an RPG for programming. To top it off, a bear wizard named Boots serves as an AI tutor, nudging learners back on track instead of just dumping answers. For practice junkies, there's the training grounds. Infinite coding challenges until those technical interviews stop looking terrifying. And here's the kicker. In 2024, the median salary for back-end developers in the US was over $100,000. And that's the kind of payoff this grind can actually lead to. Boot.dev makes all course content free to read and watch, and the interactive features unlock with membership. Plus, there's a 30-day no-questions-asked refund, so the only real risk is having to admit that coding can actually be fun. Head to boot.dev, use the code SAGE, and get 25% off the annual plan.
The spell of Darkova is still affecting.
How many PS2 RPGs let you play 5 different heroes, all tangled in the same apocalyptic fairy tale? Odin Sphere did. And the way those stories collide is still brilliant today. This isn't your standard JRPG with a world map and random encounters. Instead, you get a 2D side-scrolling action RPG where every battle happens in these circular arenas called spheres. Enemies pour in, then you juggle them with flashy combos, and at the end you're slapped with a rank arcade style. It feels like a mix between a beat-em-up and an RPG. And honestly, that fusion still feels fresh in 2025. But combat is only half the hook, the other half is the storybook structure. You don't play just one hero, you play 5. Each has their own campaign, told as if you're flipping through chapters in a fairy tale. And the best part? These storylines weave into each other, crashing together in a final act that hits harder because you've seen every side. It's a narrative trick that most PlayStation 2 RPGs never even attempted. Then you've got the little quirks that make Odin Sphere stand out. You plant seeds mid-battle, feed them energy called phosons, and watch them grow into fruit you can eat for XP. Or you head to the puka kitchens, order elaborate meals, and literally level up by stuffing your face. Add an alchemy with mandrakes and materials, and suddenly the game feels like a mad scientist's cookbook disguised as an RPG. Now, the good stuff is balanced by some very real headaches. The PS2 version is infamous for slowdown, and I'm talking boss fights that sometimes dip into single digits. Inventory management is a nightmare, too. Your tiny bag fills up with junk, and you'll spend way too long juggling items mid-fight. And yes, you will fight the same bosses and trudge through the same maps across multiple campaigns. But here's the thing, even with all that, Odin Sphere remains unforgettable. The hand-drawn art still looks stunning. The soundtrack by Hitoshi Sakimoto's team adds a sweeping grandeur, and the layered storytelling gives it an identity that no other PS2 RPG nailed. If you want the definitive version, there's Odin Sphere Life Thrisser, which fixes the frame rate and deepens the combat. But if you want the original experience, warts and all, the PS2 release is still worth your time in 2025. Tales of the Abyss is one of those PS2 RPGs that starts slow, makes you roll your eyes at the protagonist, and then, before you know it, you're 40 hours in, actually caring about that same brat you swore you couldn't stand. Yeah, Luke might be gaming's most punchable first impression, but his transformation is one of the best character arcs the genre has pulled off. Stick with him, and the payoff hits hard. The combat is where the game really separates itself from its Tales siblings. This was the first to give us free run, letting you move in full 360 degrees instead of being locked on a line. Then you've got the Field of Phonon system, which sounds like technobabble, but here's the deal. Big elemental spells leave glowing circles on the ground, and if you use the right move inside them, it mutates into a stronger, sometimes completely different attack. It turns positioning and timing into actual strategy, not just button mashing. Of course, if you ignore all that, you can mash your way through trash mobs, but then you're missing the fun. Party synergy is classic Tales. Jade's sarcastic wit, Tyr's no-nonsense balance, Guy's loyalty, they all bounce off each other in ways that make even optional skits worth watching. It's a cast that feels alive, with banter that holds up even today. Add in cooking, crafting, side quests, and yes, co-op multiplayer battles on PS2. How many RPGs can you say that about? Now, the overworld on PS2 chugs harder than a late-night LAN party, and loading screens test your patience. The 3DS port fixed most of that, but the 3D effect is forgettable and the skits are still silent in the West. And you will backtrack, sometimes to the same places multiple times, so if that's your deal breaker, fair warning. But here's why it still matters in 2025. Tales of the Abyss isn't just about swinging swords and spamming arts. It's about identity, free will, and what it means to rewrite a destiny that's supposedly set in stone. It asks big questions, then makes its characters live through the messy answers. Pair that with a combat system that rewards attention, and you've got an RPG that's not only aged surprisingly well but still feels unique. If you're digging through the PS2 library for gems that stand tall today, Tales of the Abyss is a must. And if my take means anything to you, this is probably my favorite Tales game of all time. Imagine a JRPG that feels less like a game and more like you've been dropped inside a massive sci-fi opera, complete with philosophy lectures, political intrigue, and giant mechs throwing haymakers at godlike beings. That's Xenosaga Episode 3, also sprach Zarathustra. And yeah, the name's a mouthful, but so is the experience. The story is where it all hits hardest. This game isn't shy about going big. Questions of identity, faith, and humanity's place in the universe all crash together in a finale that ties up most of the trilogy's tangled threads. Characters are pushed to face old loyalties, hidden truths finally come to light, and long-teased rivalries reach their breaking point. It's heavy, it's layered, and honestly, it's the kind of payoff that makes trudging through episodes 1 and 2 worth it. But here's the thing, unlike its predecessors, Episode 3 doesn't bog you down in clunky pacing. Combat finally feels snappy. Enemies are visible on the map, so no more random battles popping out of nowhere. Boosts let you cut in line and steal turns, breaks can stun enemies for critical punishment, and each character has skill trees that give you real control over their growth. The ES mecha fights? They're not just gimmicks anymore. When you unleash an anima attack, it looks and feels like you just pressed a red button labeled delete. Of course, no JRPG is complete without side content. And Episode 3 sneaks in plenty, with optional doors with rewards, goofy costume unlocks, and even a bizarre minigame called Haycocks that's part puzzle, part party trick. So there's enough extra stuff to keep you tinkering long after the credits roll if you're into squeezing every drop. Presentation still holds up surprisingly well in 2025. The art direction nails that sleek, futuristic vibe, and while the lip sync is a little stiff, the cutscenes are cinematic enough to keep you glued. What really sells it, though, is Yuki Kajira's soundtrack. Dark, melancholic, sometimes hauntingly beautiful. It gives the game an emotional weight that sticks long after you turn the console off. Yeah, the difficulty spikes in the second half can be brutal if you're underprepared, and the story throws around more jargon than a philosophy textbook. Plus, the Western release did censor blood in some key scenes, which is a little awkward when characters are reacting to violence you don't actually see. Still, if you're looking for PS2 RPGs that aged well, Episode 3 sits at the top. It's fast where it counts, dramatic in all the right ways, and it actually delivers a proper ending, something not every long-running JRPG franchise can brag about. Imagine if spaghetti westerns and JRPGs had a baby, and that's Wild Arms 3, a dusty desert world called Filgaia, guns instead of swords, and a party led by Virginia Maxwell, an optimistic drifter chasing mysteries bigger than herself. It's not the usual fantasy RPG, and that's exactly why it still feels fresh today. Combat sticks to turn-based roots, but with a twist. Everyone fights using arms, which are basically revolvers that eat up bullets. Fire too much, and you'll need to waste a turn reloading, which adds a nice layer of risk. On top of that, you build up force points every round, spending them on magic, summons, and special skills. Then there's the encounter system. Normally, random battles are the bane of RPGs, but Wild Arms 3 gives you control. Spot an exclamation point, tap a button, and you can cancel the fight if you've got the energy for it. No more being ambushed every 3 steps in a dungeon. Unless you're into pain, then by all means ignore it. Exploration is also different. Instead of towns and dungeons magically appearing on the map, you actually have to search for them. NPCs drop vague hints like east of the canyon or past the old tree, and you hit the search button until the location pops up. Some players love the sense of discovery. Others think it's like playing hot and cold with a blindfold, and honestly, both reactions are fair. But what really elevates the game are its dungeons. Each character brings unique tools for solving puzzles, and those puzzles are everywhere. From lighting torches to using a boomerang to hit distant switches, it constantly breaks up the monotony. You'll even fight bandits while riding horseback early on, something no Final Fantasy dared to try at the time. And the soundtrack? Absolute mood setter. Michiko Naruki's score is packed with whistling, acoustic guitars, and dusty Western vibes, and it nails the atmosphere so hard that just hearing the opening theme might make you crave a cowboy hat. Sure, the story pacing can feel slow, and the search system sometimes kills the vibe, but the personality, the puzzles, And the soundtrack make it one of the most memorable RPGs on the PS2. And the best part? You don't even need to dust off an old console. It's fully playable on PS4 and PS5 with trophies. Hey guys, do me a solid and smash the hype button. Then drop a comment with your favorite pick for the next part of this series. I check and reply to all of them. They both feed the almighty algorithm and push this channel forward, and honestly, it's hands down the best way you can help the channel grow. And of course, if you're enjoying the video, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button so you won't miss the next one. You know how most Final Fantasies throw you straight into a chosen one drama, saving crystals or stopping world-ending gods? Well, 12 flips the table, because this one is more Star Wars meets Game of Thrones than teenage angst. You're not the savior of the universe. You're caught in the middle of a political chess match, and honestly, that's what makes it hit differently, even in 2025. The first thing you'll notice, no random encounters. The monsters are right there on the field, staring you down. And the combat? It's not button-mashed JRPG stuff. The Gambit system basically lets you program your party like, if someone's health drops below 50%, cast Cure, or if enemy weak to fire, use Faraga. It sounds dry on paper, but in practice it feels like building your own AI squad. And when it clicks, you'll watch your team dismantle bosses like a perfectly oiled machine. But then you'll meet Yasmat, the super boss with 50 million HP who laughs at your perfect system and drags you into a fight that can last hours. The original PS2 version license board let everyone become everything, turning your crew into clones. But the Zodiac Age remaster fixed it by giving you actual jobs, 12 of them, and even letting each character dual class. Want a black mage who can tank hits like a knight? Go nuts. Want a white mage who secretly moonlights as a time battle mage? It works. It's easily the definitive way to play today. Quality of life is also huge here. Speed mode lets you crank the game to 2 times or 4 times, so those long treks across deserts don't feel like a second job anymore. Autosave keeps you safe, the UI got cleaned up, and the soundtrack was reorchestrated into something massive. Performance depends where you play. On PC or Xbox, you get 60 frames smoothness. On PlayStation and Switch, it's 30 frames but still perfectly solid. Honestly, if you've got a halfway decent setup, this remaster looks and runs better than a lot of games that launched around the same time. Is it flawless? Nah. Vaughn and Penelo feel like they wandered in from a different game, and the political plot can feel slow if you're used to Final Fantasy melodrama. But the world building, the hunts, the freedom of gambits, it all holds up incredibly well. Imagine waking up after a 2-year nap only to find your dad, the Overlord, is dead, and now the entire Netherworld is up for grabs. That's Laharl's life in Disgaea, Hour of Darkness, and from the very first scene you realize this isn't your average strategy RPG. Instead of melodrama, you get razor-sharp comedy, fourth-wall jokes, and an angel trainee who won't shut up about love while demons are literally blowing each other up. On paper, it's a tactical RPG like Final Fantasy Tactics, but Disgaea laughs at the idea of limits. Where else can you stack allies into a tower, throw them across the map, and detonate exploding penguins just to finish a stage? Combat is turn-based on a grid, but the real magic is in the systems layered on top. Geopanels turn battlefields into puzzles of buffs, debuffs, and chain reactions. The item world lets you dive inside a sword or piece of armor, crawling through 100 random floors just to squeeze out a few more stat points. And if the game tells you the level cap is 9,999, that's not a joke. You can and will break it. The beauty of Disgaea is how it embraces excess. Numbers climb into the millions. Characters reincarnate endlessly to grow stronger. And the Dark Assembly, which are basically demon senators, lets you bribe your way to power or beat them up if they vote no. It's unbalanced, chaotic, and completely self-aware about it, and that's why fans still love it. Of course, the AI is about as sharp as a plastic spoon, which means the real challenge is figuring out how far you want to min-max before you break the game wide open. The story also takes a while to pick up steam, and the grind can get heavy if you're not into optimizing, but those quirks are almost part of the charm. But what makes it timeless is the freedom. You're never stuck playing the right way. You can speedrun straight through, grind until you can one-shot bosses, or just mess around with the item world and laugh at Laharl and Etna's banter. In 2025, the best way to experience it depends on you. Want the classic look with HD polish? Disgaea 1 Complete on Switch and PS4 is your pick. Prefer speed boosts, auto battle, and cheat toggles to save time? Then the mobile version has you covered. And if you're on PC, you get a solid port that comes with all the bonus content from the handheld release like Etna's side story and extra characters. But keep in mind, it doesn't have the HD visual overhaul you'll find on PS4 and Switch. Space pirates, giant bugs, and anime Star Wars vibes all packed into one of the PS2's most ambitious RPGs? That's Rogue Galaxy. Released by Level 5, the same studio behind Dark Cloud, it tried to do something few games of its era managed: give you a massive adventure without ever kicking you out to a loading screen. You move from exploring to battling seamlessly, and back in 2007 that felt like wizardry. The story? It's your classic farm boy turned hero joins space pirates setup. Jaster Rogue isn't exactly breaking new ground as a protagonist, and most of the cast are built from familiar anime archetypes. But here's the twist. The world building and sheer variety of planets make the ride worth it. You jump from desert worlds to jungle colonies to bizarre industrial hubs, and the seal-shaded art style ties everything together. Combat runs in real time with a party of 3. You only directly control one character at a time, but you can swap whenever you want. It's fast, flashy, and at first it feels amazing. The catch? Dungeons run long, and battles can get repetitive if you binge too many hours. And the ally AI, let's just say it sometimes needs babysitting, so expect to micromanage tactics and items more than you'd like. But where Rogue Galaxy really flexes is in its side content. You've got quarries, which are optional bounty hunts that feel like mini-boss battles. There's the factory, a blueprint-driven item crafting system that's half genius, half headache. And then there's Insectron, which is basically Pokemon with giant bugs, complete with tournaments. Add in a post-game ghost ship dungeon and a weapon fusion system that rewards obsessive grinding, and you can sink 80+ hours here without even noticing. The Western release was actually a director's cut, which added rebalanced difficulty, new dungeons, and even a new planet. So if you played it outside Japan, you got the best version by default. And today, you don't even need a PS2. The game's on PlayStation 4 as part of the PS2 Classics line, upscaled to full HD with trophies and fully playable on PS5. So, is Rogue Galaxy still worth diving into in 2025? Absolutely. The story might lean cliché and the grind can wear you down, but its scope, charm, and unique mix of systems make it a standout from the PS2 library. What if the only way to summon your power was by putting a gun to your head? Persona 3 FES doesn't ease you into its world. It throws you straight into a story about mortality, trauma, and the strange rhythm of living when death is always lurking in the background. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it unforgettable. At its core, FES is the ultimate version of Persona 3. You've got the journey, the original campaign, and the answer. A full epilogue that expands the story and puts IGs in the spotlight. And let me be clear, this isn't just some small DLC tacked on. The answer alone can run you 30 hours, which is basically a second game with tougher dungeons and no time management fluff. Sounds great, right? Well, yes and no. Without social links or the Persona Compendium, it leans hard into combat and dungeon crawling, which some fans loved and others not so much. But let's step back to what makes Persona 3 itself so special. Unlike most RPGs where you're saving the world 24/7, here you're juggling exams, friendships, and late-night runs into a monster-infested tower called Tartarus. Time actually matters, as you choose who to hang out with, what stats to raise, and when to risk pushing deeper into the dungeon. Ignore your homework? Sure, but don't expect your charm stat to help you later. Combat is turn-based and built around finding weaknesses, then chaining them into devastating all-out attacks. The catch? You only directly control the main character. The rest of your party runs on AI, guided by tactics you set. Sometimes they save your life, sometimes they heal the enemy because, hey, why not? Now, Tartarus itself? Yeah, it's a towering grindfest. Hundreds of randomly generated floors with a limited visual palette. It can feel repetitive, but it's also where the tension builds. Long runs drain your team, literally making them tired or sick, forcing you to think twice before burning through the night. And then, there's the soundtrack. Shoji Meguro went full experimental here with hip-hop beats, jazzy vocals, and rock riffs. And tracks like Mass Destruction still slap harder than most battle themes today. Combine that with stylish anime cutscenes and a cast that wrestles with death in ways few RPGs even attempt, and you've got a game that defined an era. So, how do you play it now? The original Fez is locked to PlayStation 2 or 3 digital, making it harder to grab in 2025. Persona 3 Portable is everywhere, bringing full party control and even a female protagonist route, but it drops the answer and the animated cutscenes from Fez. Or you can jump into Persona 3 Reload, the full remake with polished combat and the epilogue added later as DLC. But if you want the original package, flaws and all, Fez is still the raw, definitive snapshot of Persona 3's legacy.
I won't lose.
Now is the time to summon.
Dragon Quest VIII doesn't waste time trying to reinvent the wheel. Instead, it takes the classic JRPG formula and polishes it so hard it still shines in 2025. The first thing that hooks you is the look. Level 5 went all in on cell shading, and Toriyama's art style absolutely pops in 3D. Monsters grin, smirk, and wobble like they've just stepped out of a Saturday morning anime. Towns feel alive, dungeons stretch out like real places, and the overworld has that, I just want to see what's over that hill magic. Even now, it holds up way better than most PS2 titles. And then there's the music. Western players got lucky here. The PS2 release came with a full orchestral score. Pair that with the surprisingly strong English voice cast, and suddenly a simple wagon ride feels like the opening credits to an epic fantasy movie. Gameplay keeps things traditional. Turn-based battles, skill trees, spells, and grinding when bosses start flexing. But there's one twist, the tension system. Instead of attacking every turn, you can psyche up to charge your next move, stacking damage until you unload a massive hit. It's the kind of mechanic that keeps even random battles from being mindless. Progression is flexible thanks to skill points. Each party member can specialize in different weapons or quirky paths, and Jessica's sex appeal tree is exactly as entertaining as it sounds. Toss in the alchemy pot for crafting, the monster arena for side challenges, and post-game trials that unlock an alternate ending, and you're looking at 50 to 90 hours of content without a dull moment. That said, random encounters can feel a little old-school grindy, and the alchemy pot on PS2 takes its sweet time, where recipes finish only after you walk around long enough, which can drag if you're hunting rare gear. The story itself? Simple. We have a cursed king, a loyal guard, and a ragtag group on a road trip to take down an evil jester. But the charm is in the execution, in the banter, and the warmth of the cast. But after all that, the big question is, what's the best way to play it today? On PS2, you get the gorgeous orchestral soundtrack and classic feel, while the 3DS adds instant alchemy, visible enemies, faster battles, new characters, and an alternate ending. Different strengths, but both worth experiencing. If you're still with me, the link to the playlist is popping up in the card right now. And before you go, don't forget to smash the hype button, leave a comment, and hit sub so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments section.